small X flare could fry a section of the grid. And that could be lights out for a year or more in a major city. And that would be global. I mean, that'd be insane. Looting would immediately happen. But let's go to the space getting closer issue now that you have that background. When the shields are down, the magnetosphere is thin. Now, the magnetosphere is basically what determines that boundary, this space boundary. And a lot, if you read old textbooks, they'll say that that's up at 126 miles. And then if you read some textbooks in the 80s and 90s, they'll say space is at 100 miles. And if you Google some recent stuff, they say space is at 86 miles. So that's space is getting here. It's coming close. And what does that mean? It means less atmosphere, stratosphere, and ionosphere to protect your ass from cosmic radiation. And what we know as geologists, paleoclimatologists, volcanologists, every one of us, tens of thousands globally, that at these 11.5 flexure points, or at these precessional points, or these mass extinction events, or magnetosphere flips, there is global catastrophe. There's cave bentonite layers from huge volcanic eruptions worldwide, and there is coal measures and other insane cosmogenic stuff, and iridium and micro diamonds and stishovite and shock quartz and anything you can imagine that comes from space. So the mainstream doesn't talk about this because we don't teach catastrophic geology, which is clearly the truth. I've lived on Earth my whole life, and it's really quiet between big events. And the big events are periodic, episodic, they always occur, and they're cosmically driven. Boom!
Well, I haven't lived on Earth my whole life, just a few years actually, but what I have seen is incredible. I mean, this is just, I'm really excited. So let's talk about the flybys. Let's talk about the pole shift. And there's a lot of misinterpretations of what a pole shift is. And I asked you before, do you think that there could be a physical pole shift? You said, no way. If that was to happen, then all life would be gone. What's so the difference between the two, and then how soon could we actually see a magnetic pole shift, and will it just be a slow process? I remember reading articles several years ago talking about how they had to realign flights. They had to realign certain runways at airports because the compass was off and the electronics were off. This was back in 2011.
Well, here's some fun facts. The North Pole just started ripping across the planet up near the rotational North Pole. So, and just recently, the magnetic North Pole was just the actual rotational North Pole. So, but let's get back to a quick primer in the poles. Now, I'm sure your listeners know about the precession of the equinoxes in the Great Year. The ancients unraveled this. If you want to get into the scientific data, you can read a book that was written back in the 70s. It's escaping me, but I have it right here. Let me find it. Where they unraveled that all the megalithic structures have that precessional numerology built into them. So the precession of the equinox is based on our rotational pole of Earth. Now, if the Egyptians knew about it and the ancients and the megalithic builders, that means the rotational pole has been pretty steady forever. But what it does do is it rotates like a top. So this is the precession of the equinox, is the pole, the rotational pole of the Earth wobbling like a top every 26,000 years, approximately. Some say 24. If you do 11.5 times 2, how many years is that, Rex? It's 23,000 years. Yeah. So let's say it's a 23,000 year wobble. And that's what we worked on in college. We just said it's 23. 2 11.5 wobbles. Half of it's pointing away from the sun, half it's towards the sun. And that's what drives the ice ages. Boom, boom. But what I uncovered with my work is that the ice ages happened all the way back in geologic history, if it is driven by ice ages. And we know that ice is not always on Earth. So that signal, with or without ice, is always driving these massive climate shifts, which drive mass extinctions. And now I know it's cosmogenic. It's from space. So we don't need a big flood to kill everything. If all of a sudden space is closer during a magnetic flip and cosmic radiation is raining down, everybody will die. You don't need a real catastrophic event to kill everybody, like a meteor impact. But what probably happens as the magnetosphere wanes and space gets closer is a bunch of stuff comes in because we become maybe like a magnet, like a target, and we start sucking it all in. And we don't have any magnetosphere or ionosphere to burn it up. So that means everything starts hitting the ground. Boom, boom, boom. And you know how often fireballs come in, every day. So if every day these fireballs hit, even if they're 6 feet, holy shit, if a 6-foot fireball came through my roof, that would be insane. And that may be and probably is what happens.
You're bringing up some great points when you're talking about how the magnetosphere right now is at one of its weakest points, and then we get one major flare, not even a Carrington event, but an X flare, something big time, and that's why I believe there is a program right now, a solar radiation management program, where they're doing their best, and I've gone directly to the CIS website, read about it, the patents, and I know that there's a lot of people that might not agree on this, which is totally cool. And I really appreciate and respect everybody's opinions and beliefs. Just make sure if you're going to have a conversation with somebody about it, at least do some of your own homework and research. And that's what I love about having a conversation with you about the Grand Solar Minimum is you've got your welder's cap on right now, and that will protect people from the evil Zorg empire that is actually getting really close right now because there's 20 miles less of space, or 20 miles closer to space. The Zorg empire is just hanging out in these ships. They're just right there. They're waiting to pounce. But I think that there's some type of program where they're trying to block these rays, maybe to protect us, maybe to protect the crops, maybe also to divert doom as long as possible. Your thoughts?
Okay, so if we get into the science of that, if they were doing that solar radiation management, which I looked into, and I did a show with Tony Rango on the radio program where he had researched the science for years. So back in the 50s, they really were testing these types of programs in the military, and you can get the documents for it all. But so if they're doing that for real, which they may be, it's happening up in the upper stratosphere, and you can't even see planes up there. So there would be planes invisible to humans on the surface doing this. They wouldn't be doing it in the middle atmosphere where everyone, oh dear, what's happened? Yeah.
I'm just still hear me? Just giving some visual stimuli. This is the Rhode Island Act of 2017, the Geoengineering Act, where they talk about the solar radiation management, how they've actually, in certain areas, taken out 76% of the ozone by putting all these aerosols in there, attempting to cool the planet as much as possible because of this grand solar minimum. It's quite mind-boggling. So, yeah, please continue. I'm just scrolling.
Yeah, so if there was solar radiation management at a large scale, it would be out of view and up so high that we wouldn't even see the planes, and they could be flying them all day up there, dumping aerosols that would linger for decades. And it could have been going on forever until maybe, because in recent times, there's been some scientific evidence to suggest it's dangerous and damaging the ozone, that they might have scaled back. But what we do know is that cosmic rays cause holes in the ozone. And the last time we had major ozone problems was solar minimum related, cosmic ray related. And they tried to blame it on humans and tax you and all that BS. But right now, as we go into grand minimum and the solar minimum of cycle 24, the ozone is burning up. So people are wondering why their head hurts or their UVA, B, C. There's a big hole up there and it's growing, and we're closer to space. There's less ionosphere and stratosphere. So more cosmic rays are getting in like never before in human history. We have reached the cosmic ray maximum. You are living a mass extinction. You're living genetic changes in your body right now due to the cosmic radiation. So it's going to be interesting how it unfolds. And an interesting thing about cosmic rays, they can change you for the better. They can drive you insane. So some people, like the full moon effect, go crazy during these space weather events and stab up cities. So some people can handle them, some can't. And this probably has to do with our genetics and past events.
You bring up some great points about the genetics, and the only thing that I was going to show here that I find very interesting is the planetary sunshades. So this says the largest of the solar radiation management operations use particulates to cover over time, like you said, over time, the whole Earth, stripping the ozone layer by as much as 76% and reducing the amount of direct sunlight reaching Earth's surface. Now, I've also asked the question before, what's scarier? Is it scarier that we're in a position where the powers that be feel like they need to protect us by spraying all this junk in the atmosphere? Or would it be scarier to know that they're doing it to manipulate the weather and control the weather? I think it would be scarier knowing, oh man, they have to do it. That's even scarier, because at least if they didn't have to do it, or at least if they didn't think they had to do it, I mean, I don't necessarily think they have to do it by any means, but maybe they're thinking this will save as many lives as possible, like it's the lesser of all evils. Plus, there's huge contracts right now that these coal industries are getting by selling this much product that's getting sprayed into the atmosphere. It's a part of the solar radiation management. So maybe it's a lesser of two evils. The way that you're describing all these cosmic rays that are coming in and such. I mean, I've talked before about how organics are great. And, if you can be as organic as possible, that's fantastic. And yet there's still organic diseases and organic viruses and bugs out there that are just as nasty as any man-made bug or whatever. Like you can see patents on the Zika virus and stuff like that. You can literally buy it freeze-dried, etc. But I'm divagating. Your thoughts?
You're not. You're getting to the point. So organic farming is not the end-all, be-all. Permaculture principles are. So if you have a biodynamic system using permaculture principles, you're not organic farming. Organic farming allows you to spray poison and other organic sprays on your crops. And a lot of times organic farms are monocropped, So you came out here. A permaculture system is a natural forest system that you redesign to your liking to grow medicine and food without you doing anything. And it self-fertilizes, and it creates biodiversity and abundance to allow you to adapt to natural toxins and viruses. So if you eat everything that's immune to that in your system, then you become it. So you are what you eat. Your grandmother told you that. It's true. You eat the genes of the biodynamic food, and your genes change to protect you from the area you're living in. The ancients knew this, and that would be considered the Garden of Eden. And that's what we're recreating here. So research permaculture principles, and you can be healthy by creating your own biome, your own space to create your own health and happiness and so on.
Yeah, I mean, you've got an outstanding ranch, and I really appreciate what you're doing out there. Looking forward to the future opportunities as well. Now, if we can, I don't know if you want to keep talking about the Grand Solar Minimum or if you want to jump into the part. Yeah, let's stay here for a minute, and then I want to really talk about what we spoke before about what our ancestors were looking at in the heavens and how they probably weren't even seeing stars, how there was some type of veil and paradise, and the real Garden of Eden could have been the whole planet. But let's get into that in just a few minutes if possible.
Yeah, that's way back. I didn't get to.
Okay, so then right now in our situation, the powers that be, the MFers, the money funders, these governments spend big bucks. They've got think tanks, very intelligent scientists. They know about the Grand Solar Minimum in these cycles. And I'm sure there's got to be some that are preparing for it. Do you see this happening, continuing like the frog in the pot that they just continue to turn up just a little bit so it's a slow boil? Or, what are some more things that we have to look forward to, even maybe in the next 6 months to a year?
Well, what I'd be most afraid of, and if you look at John Casey's relational cycle, he's the author of Cold Sun and several books that have to do with grand solar minimums and climate cycles. Now, he actually had a stroke last October during a major solar flare, and we were at KP8 when he had a stroke. Because the sun controls human health, many people have cardiac events during KP8 or greater events. And the man that was warning us about the coming earthquakes and volcanoes that happened during these grand minimas had a stroke himself, and he's been out of the limelight since then. So my prayers are to John Casey and his family, and just go check out his books, Google it. But what happens on these grand minimas, and now since 2011, the mainstream, and you can find this science, there's public papers, is the cosmic rays, as they pass through Earth and increase, cause muons to heat silicious, rich magma, and these are the violent volcanoes like St. Helens. So they increasingly erupt worldwide, and violent siliceous magma moving in the subsurface also triggers big eruptions. So mid-ocean ridges are erupting. There are thousands of underwater volcanoes erupting that we don't even know about. They could be happening right now off the coast of Oregon, off the coast of Iceland. I think there are volcanoes erupting in those ridges. So this is what happens in the coming times. Now, if you use John Casey's relational cycle and you go back to the big earthquake at the New Madrid, that's happening this winter if it's a 206-year cycle.